Today, we tabled the General Report on the audit outcomes for provincial and national government in respect of the financial year that ended on the 31st of March 2022. The report covers our detailed analysis of the audit outcomes for 424 departments and public entities that operate in the national and provincial spheres of government. The audit outcomes indicate a gradual improvement in the ability of these auditees to report transparently on how they've managed their finances, which is a trend that we reported on in the previous financial year as well. In accordance with the provisions of Section 20 of the Public Audit Act, our annual audits cover three areas, being 1, the credibility of financial statements, 2, the usefulness and reliability of performance information, and 3, compliance with the legal prescripts that apply to financial and performance management. An auditee that has no findings in any of these three areas receives an audit outcome that we refer to as a clean audit. A clean audit designation indicates that the department or entity has reported transparently on its management of the financial resources that it has been entrusted with. It has reported transparently on how it has performed against the agreed performance objectives, indicators, and targets, which, as we know, have been approved by the relevant authority. And 3, it has operated within the rule of law, in that it has no findings on non-compliance with key laws and regulations that relate to financial and performance management. Essentially, a clean audit is one where the public institution can now be assessed on its performance based on information that can be trusted. Anyone with an interest in monitoring, supporting, or assessing its performance is now able to do that. Put differently, a clean audit is the first critical step in driving performance and accountability, and in building confidence. Whilst we commend the 128 auditees that have attained clean audits this year, with special acknowledgement for the 69 auditees that have sustained clean audits over multiple years. For the reality is that whilst it is difficult to attain a clean audit, it's even more difficult to maintain it. Now, whilst clean audits make up 30% of the audits that we're reporting on, they are responsible for only 6% of the expenditure budget. This is because the majority of the institutions in the clean audit category are the smaller ones, rather than the big departments and entities, which are responsible for larger budgets and have a more direct and more immediate impact on service delivery. That state-owned entities and the key service delivery departments that are responsible for health, basic education, public works and infrastructure, transport, water and sanitation, as well as human settlements, that these auditees are lagging behind this improvement trend we spoke of, demonstrates that there is much work ahead of us if we are to improve accountability and service delivery. Only 2 state-owned entities received clean audits, being the Land Bank and DBSA, whilst only 3 key service delivery departments received clean audits, being the Western Cape Department of Education, the Western Cape Department of Transport, as well as the KZN Department of Human Settlements. 44% of the departments and entities are in the category of unqualified with findings, which we often denote in the yellow color. These auditees have been able to publish credible financial statements, but they have a finding on either their performance information or on compliance, which is mostly in the area of procurement. The 30% clean audits, read together with the 44% that have attained unqualified audit opinions on their financial statements, confirms that 74% of the public institutions in the provincial and national government can report transparently on their finances. Now, this is an important milestone, one that can be built upon in order for us to drive improvements in performance and in accountability, which will ultimately benefit citizens. Unfortunately, more than half the auditees submitted poor quality financial statements. If auditees had not been given the opportunity to correct misstatements that were identified during the audit, only 191 auditees would have received unqualified audit opinions on their financial statements, compared to the 312 auditees that finally published credible financial statements. At the conclusion of our audit cycle, there were 26 audits that had not been completed. This number comprises institutions that failed to submit their financial statements, such as Janelle Group, SA Express, as well as entities in the Northwest. There are also included in that number institutions that missed the legislated deadline for submitting their financials, such as PRASA. And then there are some institutions that did submit their financial statements on time, but their audits have been delayed for one reason or the other. Included there are the Road Accident Fund, the National Treasury, as well as NSFAS. Section 20 of the Public Audit Act requires that as part of our annual audits, we look at the usefulness and reliability of performance information, essentially the quality and credibility of the annual performance reports. We have consistently reported that performance information receives far too little attention and that its quality continues to be weak, which really makes it difficult for anyone to monitor performance against what was promised or committed and take the necessary corrective action on a timely basis. This weakness also contributes to the increasing gap between what was promised, planned for, and budgeted on the one hand, and what is ultimately delivered. In order to improve performance, transparency, and accountability, it is crucial that each of the role players in the accountability ecosystem plays their part. For us at the AGSA, this call to action has meant that we've had to get better at auditing performance information and on reporting on our findings so that we can share our independent insights with those that are appointed and elected to run public institutions. This year, we enhanced our audits by assessing the annual performance plans, APPs, and the annual performance reports, the APRs, of institutions with reference to the goals and aspirations that are set out in the National Development Plan. We've also looked at the targets that are provided for in the MTSF, which is government's 5-year plan. And we've also looked at the mandate of the specific auditee. Through our audits, we found that poor planning disciplines continue, with some MTSF targets not provided for in the relevant APPs, with some performance indicators and targets not being relevant to the performance objective, and with little reliable information to assist in the regular monitoring of the implementation of the plans. We've also found that the project management weaknesses in government continue to compromise the efficiency of government spending, as well as the effectiveness of the rollout of government programs, which are designed to improve the lived experiences of citizens. The APPs are prepared by the accounting officers and accounting authorities working with their senior managers as well as internal audit and audit committees, and they operate under the direct supervision of the executive authority. APPs are then reviewed by the DPME and they're ultimately approved by the legislatures. We trust that our insights will assist each of these role players as they seek to improve on their contribution into the ecosystem of accountability. Following the April 2019 amendments to the Public Audit Act, the AGSA has been granted additional responsibility and additional powers to follow up on the implementation of its audit recommendations, this being part of enhancing accountability and consequence management in the public sector. We started to implement this new instrument 4 years ago with only a very small sample of auditees that were subjected to this additional work. Over the years, we have rapidly increased the number of auditees where we apply these powers, and we've also now applied the full definition of a material irregularity. It is important to say that the MI process does not replace or override the responsibilities or even the role of the accounting officer or even the executive authority, for together they are the stewards that are appointed to run public institutions. Neither do these powers take over the role of the honourable members of the legislatures, who are charged with the duty of overseeing public institutions. The MI process is really a complementary tool which sees the AG acting when others do not do their part. In implementing this tool, in the audits of provincial and national government, we have found 179 MIs with an estimated financial loss of 12 billion rand. These MIs are in different stages of being processed. Some have already been resolved, in that disciplinary action has been taken, matters have been reported to law enforcement, internal controls have been strengthened, and financial recovery has either been completed or is well underway. The majority of the MIs are currently being responded to by the accounting officers. And then there's a small number where there has been inadequate responsiveness, such that we have now taken the next steps as provided for in the legislation. Our steps include having now put in the audit reports of the affected auditee specific actions that must be taken. We've also taken binding remedial action as provided for in the regulations, and we've even referred matters to law enforcement and to public investigative bodies where appropriate. So far, I'm pleased to report that we have recorded some exciting successes. Financial losses of 636 million rand were prevented from taking place as a consequence of our MI tool. 14 million rand in financial loss has already been recovered, and 509 million rand in financial loss is in the process of being recovered. 39 MIs resulted in internal control improvements that will prevent future problems, future financial losses. 36 instances resulted in the officials that were found to be responsible for the losses being disciplined or currently undergoing disciplinary processes. 15 fraud and criminal investigations have been instituted, and already 5 supplier contracts have been stopped as a consequence of MIs. The level at which accounting officers and accounting authorities respond to MIs has been most encouraging. We believe that the same energy should now be translated to responding to normal audit queries and findings. For this is how public institutions will be strengthened, and this is how the culture of public institutions will move towards better performance, better integrity, enhanced transparency, and accountability. Over the 3-year term of the current administration, auditees have disclosed fruitless and wasteful expenditure totaling 5.83 billion rand. The main reasons why money is being lost include poor payment practices to suppliers for goods and services, unfair or uncompetitive procurement practices when acquiring goods and services, no or limited benefits that are received for money that has been spent, as well as the inappropriate maintenance and use of the properties that are owned by government. We've also seen leakage through infrastructure that is not being maintained or appropriately secured. We've also seen uneconomical practices for leasing of private properties. On project management, the inadequate needs assessment, needs analysis, project management disciplines continue to cost government institutions. At some auditees, poor payment practices such as late payments, overpayments, and payments for goods that are not received has been resulting in financial loss. We call on all of those in the accountability ecosystem that are charged with responsibilities for governance, administration, and oversight to play their respective roles more effectively. And that is why the theme of our report is that a culture of accountability will improve service delivery. we recommend the following. 1, let's ensure that vacancies are filled by appointing capable officials and ensuring stability in key positions so that we can enable performance and accountability. Let's refocus and energize the performance planning processes in government so that they are comprehensive and are aligned to the auditees' mandates, to the medium-term strategic framework of government, as well as to the NDP, so that we can ensure that service delivery is planned for, appropriately monitored, and well reported on. Let's enable and insist on in-year monitoring controls and project management disciplines so that we can achieve the planned service delivery objectives on time, within budget, and at the required quality. Let's maintain a robust financial management culture, which includes ensuring effective revenue collection, prudent spending, and the prevention and swift recovery of financial loss and wastage. And let us lead by example and ensure that consequences for non-compliance with legislation and for other accountability failures, that those consequences are implemented in order to enable improved service delivery and improved accountability. Thank you.